Chapter 23 of The Radio Boys Trailing a Voice by Alan Chapman. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Tom Hirsch. Chapter 23, Preparing an Ambush. "Say, you came as quietly as a shadow," whispered the plump youth. "How do you ever do it?" "You don't expect me to blow a whistle under the circumstances, do you?" asked Bob. "Never mind that, but tell us what you heard," said Joe impatiently. "What are they up to, Bob?" "I can't tell you until I compare what I copied down with the code key," said Bob, as he fished in his pocket for the bit of paper on which he had noted down the robber's message. Having found this, he and Joe searched through the key and soon had the following message pieced together. "Truck, Silk, Barberton Road, tonight. Meet me and others. Hicks Bridge, 8 o'clock. Truck due, 10 o'clock. Having deciphered the message, the boys gazed questioningly at one another. "That doesn't give us much time to act," said Joe. "If we wait here, it may be close to 8 o'clock before the others come to relieve us, and then it will be too late to prevent the robbery." "The answer is that we won't wait here," said Bob decisively. "As long as we know their plans up until this evening, there's no need of watching this cabin any longer anyway. We'd better start back right away and tell Mr. Brandon what we found out. He'll know the best thing to do then." "That sounds all right to me," said Joe, and, as Jimmy saw a chance of getting back to camp in time for dinner, he put in no objections. "Now, for the love of butter, try to go quietly, Jimmy," warned Bob. "If those fellows hear a sound from this direction, they'll be right after us because their suspicions are already aroused." "I'll do the best I can," promised his rotund friend, "but I'm heavier than you fellows, and I can't slide around so easily." "Well, go easy anyway," said Bob. "Now, are we all ready?" With infinite caution, the boys wormed their way through the brushwood, Bob leading. By luck, rather than good management, Jimmy managed to be as quiet as his friends, and after almost an hour of this slow progress, Bob judged that they were far enough away from the cabin to risk a faster pace. The shack was out of sight among the trees when he sprang to his feet, followed by the others, and in a short time they had reached the path leading to the main road. Here it was still necessary to be extremely careful, for they never knew at what moment some turn in the path would bring them face to face with some of the robber band. Fortunately, nothing of the kind happened, and soon they reached the main road and started at high speed for the camp. "I wonder if we can't take some sort of shortcut," came from Joe as they raced along. "That's the talk," puffed poor Jimmy, who had great difficulty in keeping up with his chums. "The shorter the better." "We don't dare risk it," returned Bob. "Why, we might get lost." "Who's afraid of getting lost?" "We are, for we might lose too much time and all our plans would go to smash. No, we've got to stick to the main road." "How much further do we have to go?" "I don't know." "We've got to chase along until we reach camp," put in Joe. "Hustle now. Every minute may be precious." "I can't hustle any more than I am hustling," panted poor Jimmy. "Do you want me to drop down of heart failure or something like that?" "Maybe we'd better go along and leave Jimmy behind," suggested Joe, with a wink at Bob. "Not much!" cried the stout youth, and after that did his best to keep up with the others. Not a great while later they came in sight of the camp, much to their relief. Mr. Brandon was astonished to see them back so soon, but as briefly as possible Bob told him of what they had learned and showed him the code message. "You fellows have done a clever bit of detective work, and with reasonable luck, it ought to be possible to bag the whole gang tonight," said Brandon. "I know where Hicks Bridge is. It's about 5 miles this side of Barberton, and an ideal place for an ambuscade. The road runs between high banks just before it gets to the bridge, and some of the gang posted on those banks could command the road from either direction. But I'll get in communication with the chief of police of Barberton, and we'll see if we can't catch the thieves in their own trap." "I suppose the two men you were expecting haven't arrived yet, have they?" inquired Bob. "No, and I'm afraid we won't be able to wait for them either," said Brandon. "I could radio to the Barberton chief, but I'm afraid the message might be intercepted by the crooks, if one of them happened to be listening. I guess it'll be better to go by way of my automobile, although I hate to lose the time that it'll take." "Isn't there a telephone line from the camp?" suggested Joe. "No, unfortunately, one hasn't been installed yet," replied the inspector. "But we can do the trick with the car if we start right away. I suppose there's no need of asking if you fellows would like to come with me." "None whatever," answered Bob, grinning. "Just give us a chance to go in and snatch a little grub off the table, and we'll eat it on the way." Frank Brandon nodded, and the three boys dashed into the mess hall and caught up anything in the way of eatables that came nearest to hand. Jimmy, of course, specializing on his favorite doughnuts. Then they hurried out and found Mr. Brandon waiting for them with the motor running. After a short search, they found Herb fast asleep in his bunk and roused him unceremoniously, hustling him out before he was fairly awake. "What's it all about?" he questioned, rubbing his eyes. "Has the camp caught fire, or do you just want to borrow some money from me?" "Never mind the funny business now. We'll tell you all about it while we're traveling," said Bob as they reached the automobile. "In you go, Herb." Before they could find seats, Mr. Brandon had let in the clutch, and the car started with a jerk that landed them in a heap on the cushions. Regardless of the rough road, he kept picking up speed, and soon it was all they could do to stay in the car at all. Barberton was about 30 miles from the camp, and to reach it they had to cross Hicks Bridge. All looked calm and peaceful just then, and it was hard to believe that in a few short hours a desperate fight might be raging between the high banks that flanked the road. The bridge was some 200 feet long and passed over a deep cut between two hills. In spite of its present peaceful appearance, it was easy to see that the place would be an ideal one to perpetrate such a crime as the robbers contemplated. And, after they had passed over the bridge, Mr. Brandon opened the throttle wider in his impatience to reach Barberton. They slowed down to go through the streets of the town, and as they drew up in front of the police station, Brandon shut off his motor and leaped to the sidewalk. "Come on in, boys, and we'll tell the chief about the little party scheduled for this evening," he said, and the boys followed him into the police station. Fortunately, the chief of police, Mr. Durand, was in, and he greeted Mr. Brandon with a heartiness that showed they were old friends. After they had shaken hands, Brandon introduced the radio boys, and then proceeded to acquaint the chief with the details of the plot they had discovered. As Mr. Durand listened, a dark frown gathered between his bushy eyebrows, and his fingers drummed angrily on the table before him. When Mr. Brandon had finished, the chief jumped to his feet and strode fiercely up and down the room. "This won't be the first trouble we've had with those rascals," he exclaimed wrathfully. "Members of the same gang have held up and robbed stores in this town, and we have two of them doing their bit in jail right now. And if we have any luck tonight, we'll have the whole gang under lock and key before the morning. These young fellows must have been right on the job from start to finish, Frank." "Yes, I guess they were," replied Brandon. "If we land this gang, we'll have them to thank for it. But now, what are your plans for capturing the crooks?" For answer, the chief pressed a button, and a capable-looking police lieutenant appeared. "Get together 10 of our best men," he directed, "and put them into 2 automobiles. When they are ready to start, report to me." The lieutenant saluted and left the room. "According to the code message, the robbers won't be at Hicks Bridge much before 8 o'clock, which is after dark these days," said the chief. "We'll get there a lot earlier than that, and I'll conceal my men in the woods. Then I'll leave orders here to stop the motor truck as it comes through, and replace its crew with a few picked men from my force. When the robbers try to hold up that truck, they'll have a big surprise in store for them." It might be a good plan, suggested Bob, to mount a searchlight or two on the motor truck. At the right minute you could turn these on the crooks, and while it would confuse them, it would give your men in the woods a big advantage, as they'd be able to see the hold-up men plainly without being seen themselves. "Young man, that's a first-rate suggestion," exclaimed the chief, eyeing him appraisingly, "and you can believe we'll take advantage of it. I'll commandeer a couple from the electric light company in readiness to mount on the truck when it comes along. I wish we could persuade you and your friends to join the Barberton police force. We'll be pretty nearly a part of it until those crooks are captured, if you'll let us," said Bob. "We all want to be in at the finish." "It'll be a dangerous business, and bullets may fly thick," the chief warned him. "You fellows have done more than your full duty already, and we can hardly call on you to do any more." "Just the same, we'll come along if you don't mind," insisted Bob. "Oh, I'll be very glad to have you, as far as I'm concerned," said Mr. Durand. "I suppose you'll want to be in on it too, Frank." "You're dead right," Brandon assured him emphatically. "I've gone too far with this to want to drop out now." At this point the lieutenant appeared and reported that the men were in the automobiles, ready to start. Picking up the telephone, the chief ordered his own car. He invited Mr. Brandon and the radio boys to ride with him. "You can leave your car in the police garage, Frank," he said, and Brandon was not slow in availing himself of this offer. In a short time he returned, and the 3 automobiles started for the scene of the projected holdup, the chief's car leading and the other 2 following close behind. End of chapter 23. Recording by Tom Hirsch.